Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about one of those programs that you don't hear about, that you don't think about until you need it. And we all hope, just like our fire department, Dr. Nelson, I hope you don't take this wrong, but I hope I never use your services. Or the good Dr. Falvey, I don't want to ever use the chief's services in either case.
Yep.
You know, it's the people who make us safe. And now here's a program we're going to talk about tonight that really does take care of people in Milford who need help. Why don't we start with an introduction?
You know who I am? Robbie Tassino, one of the deputy chiefs from Milford Police Department. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Amy Leone from Community Impact, Chris's Corner, and the Regional Substance Navigation
So you
Program.
need a name tag.
I know.
That's a big name.
Just
tag,
keeps
though. I
on
don't
getting
know. That's a
along
big
to
I just call her
along.
Amy. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a big name.
that's all I am, is Amy.
Yeah, but for a long time, you said, Amy, we thought opioids.
Yep.
But it's expanded so far. Community impact. Give us a summary, kind of an overview.
Community Impact is the mental health component of all of these programs. So that's how it all started, really, was just me in an office doing a private practice up at 211 Main Street. And it has grown because the need has grown to 22 of us now. We now are on Congress Street. We moved our office because we needed to expand. And that's the mental health place where we get individual, group, family counseling, anywhere from young kids to very old. Right now, we have a huge waiting list because the need is so high. So we've been really working with the community to address that need by being able to work with different school systems and different partners and things like that. But Community Impact has really expanded addressing all the needs in the community.
Now, we're very fortunate in Milford with our relation with law enforcement, the schools, everybody. You hear a lot that people are proposing to replace police officers with social workers. Robbie, you want to? I don't get it.
So, with police reform, that came out of police reform, right? Somebody came up with the idea who's neither a law enforcement officer or someone who deals with mental health and substance abuse. They came up with this idea about having clinicians respond, and they're not wrong. So this is a battle that we've been fighting for the longest time. Case in point, some years ago, DCF, the Department of Children and Family, when you had an incident that involved a child and you needed to get services for that child, if it wasn't Monday through Friday between a certain time, crickets, okay? So you'd have to get information. I mean, I'm going back some years, obviously. And what DCF did is there's a hotline, there's staff 24/7, there's supervisors. We can, if we have to, do a removal of a child and place them in care. So, I kind of had this epiphany, if you will. How do we bridge that gap? And why this came about. And obviously I'm going to be vague because I don't want to mention anybody's name that we have interactions with. And I call them interactions, and I don't say deal with, because it's not, we didn't deal with you. We had an interaction with you. We have someone who needs services. The time to try to get them services is not when they're in crisis, Al. Okay? The time for me to try to get you heating oil for your house because you have none, or food delivered to your house, is not when you're hungry and I'm shoveling your walk to get to your house. I mean, these are all real instances that have happened over the past 6 to 8 months that I've been directly involved in. And to be on the phone, standing there, trying to get these things together, to say that it's pushed me over the edge is an understatement. So we have to look at the root cause of all this and how we can mitigate it. And that's with having a collaborative effort, like with Community Impact and what Amy and her group brings to the table, forming this alliance that's not open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
Right.
That's 24/7. We don't close. We have resources. And in those resources, there's resources. Okay? Because it's not always going to be that immediate response. It's going to be, hey, We need to follow up with this individual, make sure that they're getting to the appointments they need to get to, make sure that they're getting the medicine that they need, make sure that they're getting the counseling that they need. And then there's the other side, right? If you don't think you need some therapy and some counseling, then you really need it. then you really need it, okay? But you know, case in point, the other day, and forgive me, I think it was Channel 5, did an expose, was talking to a mother whose child is being held at a hospital because there's no place to place him from the hospital. This is not in Milford. This was on Channel 5, I believe. And what happened is he was in crisis, brought to the hospital, and now he's stuck at the hospital for a place to go where the real therapy can start and take place. So we didn't serve this person. We failed. The system failed. And the time to intervene wasn't when he was in crisis. It was for, let's say, the officers had an interaction with him on the side of the road, coming home from school, where he was acting out. Hey, you know what? We need to make sure we give this to the Family Services Unit to follow up with. The counselors and the officers get together. And it's not this type of police presence. It's a dressed-down police presence with counselors, not at the police station, that can build this bond, get services to where they're needed, and prevent the crisis.
Kind of reminds me of when you look at mental health, like physical health. The time to start is when you have the sniffles.
Right.
Not when the patient is got flaming pneumonia.
Exactly.
Because at that point they're dealing with, I hate to say a survival reflex, but
Yeah.
you're not saying, okay, let's relax and let's have a discussion.
Right. Yeah. And the police need to be involved in this because it's the streamline of information and how it gets disseminated. Now, this was told to me by a psychologist and psychiatrist, that people who struggle with mental health wellness are also capable of committing crime. But it's up to the police to work with the counselors and the courts to get to the root cause of this. Because if you don't, it's just a merry-go-round. And we need to get off the merry-go-round. All right? Enough of this Band-Aid. Enough of this putting somebody in handcuffs and taking them to a hospital as a last-minute effort. It needs to change.
Right.
I mean, there are two people living in our community that I pick up their medicine and make sure they have it and pay out of my pocket, which is fine. But if I wasn't doing that for them, who's gonna? This needs to be done. And it's not just good for the individual, it's good for the community, okay? And it's really what we're supposed to be doing, you know, as human beings. I mean, we're letting these people struggle, you know?
Totally agree.
And right, and all I'll argue is if you think you're doing great and you don't have these issues, well, good for you. That means one of two things. You're in denial, and yes, the river in Egypt, I get that. Or you manage it very well, all right? And I'll concede to that, because I think a lot of us manage it very well.
Right.
But the time to try to mitigate this is not on the side of the road. That's where police reform got it wrong, okay? It's not to get you services when you're in a manic state, okay? When you're homicidal, suicidal. That's not the time.
Right.
We've already failed when that happened.
Well, but that's where I worry. You know, when people say, well, we'll just take 20 cops off the street and replace it with 20 social workers.
Right. Doesn't work.
Wait a
We
second.
have to do it together.
Right.
Yeah,
We have to
if
do it
somebody
in
in there is
unison.
suicidal or homicidal,
That's right.
God bless you for being the guys that run into problems. But you don't want to send somebody who's used to running out of problems
Right.
in, because they could have guns, they could have knives.
Right. Safety first.
Right.
You know, and I think that we saw, you know, with the Regional Substance Navigation Program, we started that in the height of the opioid epidemic. And we were responding with the police right to the overdoses, to the hospitals, and trying to get people help. And over time, what we saw was the most successful. Yes, that's successful. But what we saw was the most success was the people coming after the overdose, saying we form that relationship, and then they come to us and they say, I need help, you know, before any of this happened. So the responding in the crisis works, But I think the most beneficial was, like Robbie said, was that follow-up.
Well, a lot of it too is we have a jaundiced view of our little town of Milford. When somebody told me that 50% of the kids at the high school are on free lunch, it was stunning to me. Because that means 50% of the families are living on 34,000 or less
Right.
for 4 people. I would have never thought that.
Right.
You know, I think of Milford, it's Mayberry. You know, I'm waiting for
Well,
Aunt B and
Yeah, well, you gotta get that. You gotta change your view.
but you know,
Yeah.
I want to think of it as Mayberry. I want to believe that, like you say, people should do things and they do it because it's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
But we have to look at reality that there's a lot of people struggling.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot, and I think that we've done such a huge job with our collaboration with the police and just in the community with the schools and, everybody trying to reduce that stigma that it's okay to not be okay, and being vulnerable and saying, I need help is all right. We're here to listen to you. We all have problems, like Robbie said. I mean, I say the same thing all the time. Like, if it's me that I'm struggling, I need somebody too. I don't have the answers for myself, but I can help you with your family. But it takes a lot of strength to ask for help. And I think we've seen over the years that, that shame and that guilt that you have when you need to ask for help has definitely, it's still there. It's always going to be there, but it's definitely reduced. I mean, we have times where people, have no place to go, and where do they voyage? Into the police station. When would that have ever happened?
Now, and it's an interesting thing because we all have better days. We all have those days that we wish we didn't have. And I get to go home and see my best friend. I'm married to an angel who somehow, no matter how bad the day is, when I see her, tension goes down. I see my daughters, my grandkids. Everything's okay. It's back to perspective of this is pretty good. But the people who have crises at home, how do they cope?
And that's the huge question. We look at it and we look at how do they cope? What resources do they have? We opened Chris's Corner as a way to provide the resources for people and, who are struggling with mental health and substance abuse. And what we found when we opened it was people need help with insurance and food and housing and clothes and how do you get a job? So we've expanded the amount of resources because that's what the town needs. That's what the people need.
Now, you have a very unique relationship with law enforcement in Milford.
It's family.
Is it really, or is it just we look at it that way? Are all little
It's-
towns like this?
No, and it's unique, and that a lot of that credit goes to her. So again, you have to understand in this family services unit that we're building, it's not for every officer. You know what I mean, and I agree with that. But the officers that have shown interest, that have been working with us, the person that I want to pick to head it, Sergeant Paul Pinto, is amazing. He was in the schools, and he's a Milford person. He has a family of his own. He's very compassionate. He's just has the perfect temper for it. And there's a couple other people who I want to work for him, and they can all work together with Amy in this collaborative effort of basically outreach at its infancy, and that's what you need. It's got to be the right temperament because it's
Right.
not for Amy. She's got the right temperament. I mean, you talk about Angel stuff like this. I mean, I've been with her before, and I've had to walk away, and she just stays at it, and that's why what her worth and what she brings to it, but everything that we deal with that are these trials and tribulations really come back to a mental health and wellness. And I brought this in as I was leaving my office, and I'm not going to open it because it's sensitive information, but I wanted you to show you. See, it says Narcan administration on it. All right, look at the thickness of that folder. Okay, each sheet of folder in there, if the camera can see that, each sheet of paper in that folder is an overdose. Since the first of the year.
That's this year.
That's this year.
We've had 43 this year, and 3 have resulted into death.
Okay? So these are people that were dying, that were given Narcan by police to save their life. Right there.
They were dead.
They were dead.
Mm-hmm.
They were dead because
Right.
you think about it, I don't know of a respiratory inhibitor that works as well as opioids. It's supposed to stop you breathing,
Yeah. Well,
and it seems
does.
to do a very good job.
It does.
And the worst part about, Robbie brings that folder, and, I can say, like, there was 43 and 3 resulted into death. We're in May, okay? Last year, we're in May, but last year in 2021, in the height of COVID and everything, we did a great job in, providing resources. We had 42 overdoses, 2 deaths
In the whole year,
in the whole year.
where they're already.
We're there already. And
we
that
had
was as of,
43 overdoses and 40 saved lives
Yeah.
yep,
already, and we're
Already.
only in May.
We're in a bad way, and I can sit and talk and spend some time with these folks, and Amy spends a lot more time, and it's so interesting that when we get together and compare notes, they all have the same underlying. I can see where it started to come off the track for them, and I'm no different than them. You're no different than these people. I got news for you. You go home. You said you went home to an angel and beautiful life. Well, God love you because you hit the lottery.
Yes.
But you know what? A lot of people haven't. And it's really only one step away from going.
Well, you think of the stigma. When we were at Milford High or whatever, you thought of the heroin addict, the druggie, the back alleys of Boston, the scummy people. And all of a sudden,
it's my neighbor.
it's the kid that cut my lawn. It's the girl who babysit for me who hurt themselves during a sports injury.
I mean, look at who I named. I mean, I named Chris's Corner after Chris Swindell. He was an athlete, great kid, great family.
Great family. I still have a painting that Mother
Karen
Swindell, Karen did of my house.
Yeah,
It hangs up today.
And, that's a good example. And one of the things that we saw in 2021 was in all of those overdoses that we were experiencing, it was like July, and I had enough of seeing that the overdoses were happening at the hotels. So, Chief Falvey and I got together all the people from the hotels, all the general managers, and we said, we've got to band this together. We've got to do something because this is happening at your hotels, and we need to put an end, we need to try to prevent this in some way. And I have to say, Officer Crossan stepped up to the plate, and he has formed relationships with all of those hotels, and we have been able to reduce them dramatically.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
How so? I mean,
He has been able to be a presence. He has reached out and formed relationships with the front desk people.
but were these people renting rooms or?
Yeah, we saw it during the pandemic, and I mean, Robbie, you can
Yeah.
speak to it more, but we saw a lot of people were renting the hotels. They were, if you rented the hotel, I'd bring the drugs, or they were homeless and they would stay there. And we also have to remember that there was a lot of pandemic COVID, unemployment money that they were getting. So the hotels were stacked, and we were seeing a lot of incidents happening. And
Yeah.
I'm glad to say that's not happening right now. But what we have seen, I think, and Robbie can attest to it, is that we, years ago, we started tracking, alcohol use, because as we saw the opioid epidemic decrease in our area, I was like, oh, every good heroin addict was never an alcoholic. So alcohol was never their problem. That's the classic statement you get. And we have now seen a huge increase in alcohol-related issues. And we've been tracking them, and just, from now, May, we had 15 last year and 31 right now.
For a period of time, whatever media you follow, was opioid, and then it went quiet because we had COVID, we had the Ukraine, we had other things.
Yeah.
People are feeling like, well, the opioid epidemic must be way, way down.
No.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I showed you the folder, right?
I mean,
That's the beginning of the
fentanyl
year.
is way up.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I don't know if I could find heroin, I might be able to find fentanyl.
Yeah.
That's the
there's-
difference.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I mean, you talk about Milford and what, the size of Milford, and you said Mayberry, and I think that's warm. And you know what? As a police officer and a command staff, I love hearing that from the Milford people. But let me tell you what happened in a 24-hour period some weeks ago, and obviously I need to be vague. In a 24-hour period in our little town, we had an overdose death, an overdose resuscitation, a suicide attempt that is only alive because of the efforts of police, fire, and EMS, and a successful suicide. That is a 24-hour period. In a 24-hour period, 2 people died, and 4 people almost died in a 24-hour period. Now, there's no exaggeration there. None of that is a story. None of that is a sham. That is fact. The other problem that we have with getting the word out is, and I get this and I respect it, a lot of the stuff in the Freedom of Information Act, you can come walk into the police station and you could say, give me the press log for the last 24 hours. And they'll go print it off for you. Anybody can do that, okay? But what's not in there is domestics, mental health. That stuff's not in there. So when people do see these police logs, what are they talking about?
Right.
Oh,
There's no domestic issues.
Yeah, there's no domestic issues. And here in Milford, I'm here to tell you that seldom an hour ticks by that we don't respond to a domestic
Right.
in Milford.
Really?
Yep. And where do we find a lot of these domestics come from? Alcohol abuse. The mental health, they're not getting the outreach that they need, the treatment, the follow-up that they need. And it manifests in domestic abuse. And that's the reality of it. We got to stop trying to deal with this when the box is open.
Right.
And we've all, we let the cat out. We got to stop that. We got to try to get off this merry-go-round because that's all that happens.
But how do you know? I mean, I could be an alcoholic.
Yep.
And be a danger to myself.
Yep.
I can be an alcoholic and be a danger to my family.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I am to myself, I'm probably to my family too.
Mhm.
But until I become chronic, how do you know that I need help?
Until you become chronic, well, so that's not entirely accurate, right? So this is what the Family Services Unit would bring to that. We go to your house and we have interaction with you, patrol. So here's the other thing.
Like a wellness check.
Yeah, people don't understand. Well, even a domestic. Let's say there's
Yeah.
domestic at your house. Let's say there's domestic, and we go there, and nobody's put hands on anybody. But your wife, we separate you, and we talk to everybody because that's what we do. And she's like, he's just really been struggling, and
Okay.
So then the patrol force will pass it on to Family Services Unit, and then they can do some follow up.
So that's the trigger. I mean, something.
That's
Right.
My darling bride and I decide we can't stand it. It's just screaming and yelling.
Right.
Something triggers
right,
an
call.
office, a call.
right,
Because I'm trying to figure out that when it starts, when you want to start dealing with
right
it,
there.
it's kind of stealthy at that point.
And I think the difference, so, once that comes on to us and, and we do that with the opioids right now. So we know that this system works, and this is just the added layer of what we need. When we get that call, let's use this scenario that Robbie's talking about, we can then reach out, follow up, not only with you, but also your wife, your kids that are in the house, being able to provide the support for everybody. Maybe you don't want to get help for your alcohol, that you don't consider yourself an addict right now or an alcoholic. So, all right, what can we help you with? What is the problem? Alcohol I always see addiction as a solution to an underlying problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when people come in, I work with the courts, I'm in the drug court, everything like that. When people come in for a substance abuse or mental health evaluation, 9 times out of 10, I'm not talking about their drug use because I don't really need to know the war stories and all of that stuff. I want to know why. How did this all start? Where was the breakdown? Let's get to that. And it's peeling back that onion to really figure out what happened? What can I help you with so that substance or whatever it is isn't your solution anymore?
But you brought it up, that if the tension level keeps building, when I'm tense, I go home. Somehow, my darling bride just takes it out of me.
Right.
All is well with the world when I see her face. But if I got home and it was the opposite, I mean, there's got to be a breaking point for no matter who you are.
How about you go home in the winter? How about you go home in the winter and your wife's there? And you've had a couple drinks, and maybe she's had a couple drinks, and you start arguing because there's no heat in the house. And there's no heat because you just fell on some hard times, but yet let's make it even worse for you. Let's say a couple pipes burst, and now you don't know who to turn to. All right? I throw this scenario out there because this happened. All right? It took me weeks to organize smock, to get some home heating fuel, and at no charge. Because here's the thing: the programs are out there.
100%.
But me as the patrol officer, certainly me as a deputy chief, I work 90 hours a week. Deputy St. and I work 90 hours a week. We're like a one-armed wallpaper hanger. That's what my father used to say. There's no way I can coordinate this for you, but they can. They can, and that instance I gave you now is seamless.
Right.
They
So
got
you've
what
got
they
a
needed.
person who can't help themselves for whatever reason.
Doesn't
just
even know, but hold on a
doesn't
second.
know
Doesn't
how-
even know what resources are there.
Right, that's
Al.
what I'm
Because
saying.
that's the hard part, is finding those resources.
That's
And
right.
and that was the whole thing, is like, when you say, when you go to the doctors and they say, you could really use some counseling, you feel like you're struggling, COVID did a number on people, and they hand you a piece of paper that has a list of numbers down it. That is overwhelming to call all
Well,
of
but
them.
I'm just thinking, in your case, you say, well, just go on the internet, Google,
What internet? What internet?
and you
We
sit
don't have
there and
internet.
say, wait a minute, we don't have a computer,
We don't have internet.
or we don't have
What are you gonna do?
internet.
We don't have internet. What do you mean?
I mean, my kids think that I'm illiterate when
Yeah.
it comes to anything dealing with
Right.
technology, even though that's my life. But there are people out there.
There are people out there, and listen, I've been a paramedic since I was 18 years old. I'm 52 now. Do the math. Don't do the math. I'm old. And until I've been thrown into these instances, I didn't know how to get all these resources together. But I can't try to juggle this and cover patrol and respond to other things and try to get you the services I need. So I'm letting you fall off the end.
Yeah, but at least, Robbie, you have a clear head. You have a way of getting to it. If I'm already struggling because I'm freezing in my own house,
Right.
I can't feel good about how I'm taking care of my family.
Right.
My wife can't feel good about how she's taking care of
That's
the
right.
family.
Mm-hmm.
And then you layer on top of that saying, now relax and go to Sue Edwards and she'll let you use the internet at the library.
So this is the scenario. How's this scenario pull, right? You pull up in his patrol offices, right? And the radio's going off and they're busy and they're busy and they're busy. And you're like, yeah, I just, there's no heat, this and any other thing. Yeah, listen, there's places you can call. Go on the internet. What's wrong with you? Okay, you two, you're okay. You're not going to hit each other. You didn't hit each other. No, nobody hit each other. You don't want any restraining orders. No restraining orders. Okay, listen, you can follow up with these places. There's services out there. Okay, have a good day. What did I do for you? I did nothing for you.
Nothing.
I did nothing. In fact, I think I closed the door on you even more.
Yeah.
Now, how's this? Al, listen, we have a program here in Milford. I'm going to have some people reach out to you. Okay? All right? We can't do it now, but we're going to reach out. Any other issues tonight, you call 911, we'll be here for you. But we're going to have someone reach out to you and you can follow up with them. All right? You can go for them, have a cup of coffee, you can talk with them, and they're going to help you get the services you need and help you with whatever else they can help you with here at the house.
Right.
Okay? All right? I promise you someone's going to call you tomorrow, Al. Al, if someone doesn't call you tomorrow, you call the station and ask for me. But they're going to call you tomorrow. Okay? I've just given you hope.
Yeah.
I've given you something to hold on to. And then when somebody does call you, whether it's Amy, one of the clinicians, one of the other guys, we gave you a path.
Right.
Here's a trick question to a deputy chief.
Go ahead.
Are we staffed well enough to do this?
We're not.
But we will be.
We will be. And
Because
that's the
we
whole
make
point of what we're
everything
doing.
happen.
So it's not just law enforcement. It's law enforcement teaming up with.
Absolutely.
Right. 100%.
If I call it
100%.
an NGO, a non-governmental organization, that's more international, but
And there's nothing like it that we know of around here, even close. Because again, I'm talking about 24/7 partnership. I'm talking about 24/7 outreach.
365 days a
Right.
year.
we
'Cause-
couldn't afford to staff police officers like that.
No, you can't. There's grants out there, and we've applied for grants.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you couldn't take on everything Amy's organization is doing
No.
No,
under your
and
own
you, and,
budget.
and you should. No.
No,
And-
and I think that that's where the partnership comes into play, where, we can provide that, co-response, outreach, all of that stuff, but then we also have relationships with so many different organizations that we can refer out. Once we get that person, it's calling SMOC, it's maybe they need, support from the church or whatever, or another counseling
Exactly.
agency or housing, all of those things, because that's what we already do.
Exactly.
And it's just enhancing it a
You know,
little
and it's
bit more.
interesting, because like you bring out Officer Pinto,
Sergeant Pinto, but go ahead.
Sergeant Pinto. The name Pinto, all of a sudden I start thinking of Domingos I went to school with. I start thinking
Yeah.
of how many Pintos.
Yeah.
It feels good to have local. Number one, it feels good that there's opportunities for local. If I
Yeah.
say kids, I get in trouble.
Yeah.
Local residents.
You can
Sure.
call him a kid,
Yeah.
he'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine with that. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
somebody who grew up in Milford.
Sure.
There's got to be that little extra.
Sure.
Because I remember when Phil Sermacoli used to talk about recruiting physicians into the medical center. They gave preference to people with ties to Milford families because they stayed longer. There was just that extra. And I hear the same thing. I mean, it's nice when I hear how many people speak Spanish and Portuguese as well as English.
Paul Pinto. Sergeant Pinto. All right. And he's passionate and he's compassionate. I couldn't think of anybody better to work with Amy and team up and run this. But when you're talking about cost, it's interesting. The problem is we're kind of delusional, and I'll tell you what I mean. So let's go back to you. You're home. Your water pipe's broke. We didn't help you. You've been drinking, right? So now you got these other things going on. We wrestle around with you on the ground because now you've hit your wife. All right, you're going to jail. We wrestle around with you on the ground. All right, cops get hurt. You get hurt. We end up at the hospital. You end up under arrest. We end up getting overtime people in to stay with you. What do you think the cost of that is? Okay? But you don't see it up front. So if we don't see it up front, it's not a real cost. It is. And then it gets even better, Al, because you know what? I got to put you up at the hospital. And who do you think's paying for that? We're paying for that. All right? But I'm putting you up at the hospital, but what am I doing? I'm putting you on that merry-go-round. Because we're not really doing anything for you. You're sitting there. And you're waiting to go someplace that can give you some more therapy or help you. But guess what? You could be sitting there with the current crisis at the hospital of mental health for weeks. For weeks. Oh, you look shocked.
In the hospital.
Oh my gosh,
Oh, don't be shocked.
that's nothing.
That's nothing.
Nothing.
That's
Yeah,
nothing.
but when I think of cost, I mean, with Chief Falvey in the budget, we always, you got to look at overtime. Do you really need all that overtime?
Yep.
And the famous one was Tom O'Laughlin.
Yep.
We used to joke that at the end of the year, if there was $18 left, it's what's the matter, Tom? You couldn't buy an extra pencil?
Yeah.
Because he'd take a $5 million budget down to the last $12.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you sit there and say the cost of putting somebody in the hospital. Two to me. One, the physical dollars. But two, you're taking a bed that somebody else could benefit from.
So here's it. You're in crisis. You're up at the hospital. The hospital doesn't have a police force.
Right.
So you're in crisis and you're acting out. Guess who's there on forced overtime
Right.
with you, Al? The police. And I promise you, we've spent more money up there with you, Al, than we would have if we were proactive, if we got you off the merry-go-round, and we actually did you a service that got you back on your feet and got you to be a productive member of society.
But that's just a losing situation all around, because The officer I don't know of many officers that work 40.1 hours a week.
Doesn't exist.
So you sit there and say, the overtime that we pay officers for, personally, I want it to be, you have to do it.
Yep.
Because they have kids.
Yep.
They have families.
Mhm.
For their mental health,
Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to have them home at dinner.
Yeah.
But if they're now forced overtime,
All the time, Al. All the time. Forced overtime. All the time. And then you talk about our mental health and wellness.
Right.
Well, how was that? How was that your home with that, because you're not the only one that has that angel at home and those beautiful children, but how is that getting stripped away from you?
well, that's what I'm
Getting
saying.
forced
I mean,
in.
I
Well,
want you home.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because that way when you go
Nope.
back on your next shift,
Nope.
You're good.
Nope.
But, and so that's why I think the partnership is so important
That's right.
because, we look at, mental health. We hear it all the time on the news about the crisis and, we're living it every day. So if somebody needed to do a wellness check because somebody's afraid of, the well-being of somebody or the safety, I mean, we're up into the 280s just for this year.
Oh, yeah.
Checks that we've done. We've had 38 Section 12s where people were a risk to themselves or
see,
others.
to me, that's a scary movie because I'll admit, I got pulled over once for doing
I remember you telling me- I remember you telling me this
59 miles an hour on the Mass Pike. Turns out it was in the tunnel at 1 o'clock in the morning coming home from Logan,
Mhm.
and the tunnel is 45. But, as I pulled over, my only thought is, officer, I don't know what I did, but I don't want to do anything to spook you. And you sit there and say, I could be an axe murderer or something, and that poor cop's walking into an ambush. It's got to be the same thing when you hear violence in the house.
Oh, it's horrifying. It's not something you get used to or comfortable with, and I would argue that you should never get used to it or comfortable with it. Today I had to leave my office because we were so busy. It's Tuesday in Milford, Al. During the day, why is the deputy chief running out of his office to go to a call on a wellness check on somebody that, family was concerned, left some ominous messages, and haven't been talked to in a couple days, and the car was there, and they were in there, and they were in crisis. And we ended up at the hospital, and it took us some time to de-escalate and walk out. But that could have gone a different way. And even in that situation, we didn't serve that person. We didn't serve that person. What, because we got them to the hospital without, getting hands-on and rolling around with them? No. We should have been involved long before, and to talk to the family. Long history meltdown does good when this person's taking their meds. Does good. Hasn't taken their meds in weeks.
How many times you hear they forgot to take their meds for the last
Or
week?
haven't had the money to take them, Al. Haven't had the money to take them.
Can't get to CVS.
Can't
or
get
can't
to
get
CVS.
wherever
We
it
can
is.
fix and change all that. All that. This person today was classic. Could have benefited from this program. And now this person is at the hospital
Waiting.
waiting, which could be weeks.
At $1,000 a day.
$1,000 a day. Oh, you're way off.
No.
You're way off. Way low.
But see, that's the part. There's so many people that could benefit from what's $2,000 a day, whatever it
Yep.
is, that could benefit from that bed,
Right.
from a real medical condition.
Right.
Kills me to hear, well, we're just going to park somebody there because we can't take care of a Milfordian.
And then, think of this. So you were having crisis. How much crisis do you think you're in now, being stuck at the hospital for weeks? How
What
much?
does that person do at the hospital?
Nothing.
I don't know, Al. What does that person do at the hospital? You answer the question. Nothing.
And then what happens when he gets out?
Right.
Nothing. There's no maybe they'll set up with that piece of paper or they'll have something, but
Right.
who's following up to make sure that he attended that session
That's right.
or got that medication?
Well, you brought it up. He or she hasn't taken their meds for 2 weeks, so they're in an imbalanced situation. Well, when you let them go,
Right.
why weren't they taking their meds? They
Right.
can't afford it. They can't
Right.
drive to CVS.
Right.
They're lonely. They,
Right.
they forget, whatever it may be.
these are not, these scenarios and situations are not abstract. We have so many success stories
Yeah.
of people that we've made sure they take their meds and follow-ups. I have I have an individual who just loves to come by the station and thank me. I'm like, I appreciate it, thank you. I'm really busy today, but yes, okay. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And Amy and the group, I know, yep, they're great, and thank you so much. I'm glad you're doing well and stuff like that. But there needs to be that reinforcement because we lose as a society. It's not an individual problem, Al. It affects a whole society. To save a village, and you want to talk about the family dynamic. If you don't think that there's somebody in a family dynamic that on the outside looks Brady Bunch, and on the inside is Adam's family, then sit down on the couch because we have a lot of talking to do, and we need to have resources for these people.
Right.
So what are the biggest drains on your resources? And you think about the services that you offer the most to people.
I think it's the services that we offer the most is the mental health counseling, and that's the service that I can't meet the demand right now with such a need. I'm hiring new employees, it seems like every month, just to create that.
But these are social workers, or
these are mental health counselors and social workers. And so, for an example, we look at the effects of COVID on the social and emotional health of these young kids that are in school. So, Lisa Kincaid and I, we say that we work 1 million hours a week because we're on the phone at 7 or 8 o'clock at night solving the the world's problems. And we have 5 full-time therapists from community impact in the school system helping to combat that need of services.
But again, you think of Lisa. When you say, to me, she's on call 24/7.
Right.
Because I remember we were at a meeting at the high school and this mother walked in to go to a class. She had 3 kids with her. And they didn't have a coat and it was the middle of winter.
Yep.
The kids had 2 sweaters with holes in it. I didn't know what to do. So I picked up the phone, called my daughter and said, what do I do? He says, call Lisa. It didn't matter that it was whatever hour of the night.
That's exactly right.
Within an hour, that kid had a coat. And, kind of makes you feel good that you got the Lisas of the world who
Right.
didn't say, hey, by the way, you realize it's 9:30 at night or
Right.
8:30 at night.
Absolutely not.
Well, those are things that they're not in our vocabulary. We don't understand. We don't live life like that. That's not what we signed up for.
But how do you, I'm really happy that a friend's son is at Amazon making $20-some an hour, packing boxes or whatever he does. How do you compete with that? Can you pay social workers enough?
Well, so that's a great question. Why aren't we paying social workers enough? And why do we have to talk to somebody and get them to come on board and say, listen, we're going to pay you X, Y, Z, you're going to do this. But listen, it's on a grant. So.
But that's scary.
That's horrible.
You're telling
Right.
me that you have enough money. When I joined the biotech,
Yeah.
we knew we had X months of money at our burn rate, but you're signing up for that. That's biotech. To go to somebody saying, I want you to risk your mental health dealing with everybody else's problems.
Right.
But by the way, I can only pay you for 1.5 years.
Or whatever. We don't know. Right.
Or
Right.
Right.
even
They
worse.
could pull the plug out. Some years ago, long time ago, we had some clinicians with us in the station in the car.
Right.
Years and years ago, I was a young officer. And the program worked pretty well. It was in its infancy. Obviously, it needed to be fine-tuned and things, but it was something real, something tangible. And it was way before the opioid crisis and the things that we see now. But case in point, one day I'm like, where is so-and-so? Oh, there. Nope, the grant's done. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Yeah.
So
They're
the
like, yeah, no,
person
they're no
that
longer here.
Sally was helping
Right.
Is
cope. All of a sudden, one day just goes poof.
Right.
Literally gone.
And I think that also, that is an issue, that the services could be gone. But I think there's so many, because this has become such a family, the partnership between the police department and us is that, even though we don't have that family services unit, it's who we are. You know, and so if Robbie calls me at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and says, hey, I need you, well, yeah, I'm going to be there because that's who I am. You know, not everybody is going to be like that, obviously, but, you know, I think the therapist that we hire to do a job like this, when knows that it's a co-response, it's with the police, it's a special person. It's a special social worker or mental health counselor who wants to do that work.
Are there places for the average Milfordian who says, I can't do 40, 80 hours a week, but I can do something? Are there places for the average Milfordian to pitch in and help?
There will be.
Right.
There
And
will
even
be.
at Chris's Corner, there's places for them to help too, you know?
What is Chris's Corner?
So Chris's Corner, we opened it in the middle. It's a grant funded with the district attorney's office through the Bureau of Justice. It's an over $1 million grant named after Chris Swindell. And we opened it in the height of the pandemic, you know, in the beginning of the pandemic. And we have helped over, I think, 4,500 people. And that's been helping them get into detoxes or receiving recovery coaches or individual therapy or family support, you know, like just doing all of this stuff. We're averaging seeing probably 500 people a month at Chris's Corner down at 12 Main Street.
And I think people don't really understand that you can't just have one person in the family suffering.
No, it's a family disease.
You start thinking
Whether
about
it's
what
mental health or substance abuse.
There is no one person in the family suffering.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you think about it, the rent's in Milford right now, if you don't have two incomes. I mean, I'm always amazed when I see these single dads, single moms, how they exist with kids
Right.
under one income.
Yeah.
So if one of those two incomes gets taken offline for whatever reason, well, there you go. Now you got your pipes bursting, and I don't know how to pay for the plumber.
Yeah, and you know, it's also going back to, you know, and you're right. I can call Amy at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she's going to pick up the phone, and she's going to try to mitigate this and try to mitigate that. But how big is her halo? How broad are her wings that she can keep doing this?
Right.
Or that the people on our end can keep doing this and keep up that pace. And she'll be honest with you, what kind of effective service are we providing when we're both burned out,
Well,
fried up from these 2 in the morning calls?
Robbie, it's 91 of your week.
Right.
Right. You can't be as fresh as
Right.
if you were working
course.
like a 50-hour week like
Right.
most of us do.
So what did I do? I just failed you. We just failed. Again. So let's put you on the merry-go-round one more time and let's spend another handful of thousands
But
of
if somebody
dollars.
wanted to help out at Chris's Corner, what would they do?
So, like, what would they physically? I mean,
Well, I call
mean,
you up
so-
and say, I want to pitch in a few hours a week to help.
so and we would say, what would you like to do? Because everybody has their own little thing their own niche that they like to do. Like we have people who do that all the time, and I'm a yoga instructor. All right, you want to run a yoga group? You want to do a knitting club? You want to do a book club? We have a fortune cookie club. So you sit around and we open fortune cookies and talk about how that fortune relates to your life right now. You know, like, so whatever it is that you want to do.
But stuff like that you wouldn't think of in a home for people trying to get over addiction.
And it's a drop-in center. So it's a place you come in and have coffee. You need to find a job, we'll help you find a job. You need a recovery coach to talk about your sobriety and get on a good wellness plan. You need a therapist, you know, help with insurance. That's a huge one. You
Huge.
know, help
Huge.
with vouchers for housing. You know, so I need a bike. You know, somebody may say, I don't have a license. It's my third DUI. I need to get a bike. Well, we're going to find you a bike. And we get you a bike. And, you know, some people come in and say, I don't have any clothes, so we'll find you clothes. We now realize that a lot of, you know, the different cultures that are here in Milford, they needed to really understand, you know, that the parenting skills, you know, parenting things that are, you know, that you're supposed to do here in the United States, like not leaving your children's and stuff. So we have a group in 3 different languages just for different, parenting skills. And, we've learned, through mental health and substance abuse, there's a lot of sexual assaults. A lot of our clients have either been a victim of sexual assault or they have passed, sexual assaults in their history that start to come out as your underlying problem. So we've partnered with Wayside, and now we have a rape crisis counselor in there that's able to help support those people too. So, and we're all trauma certified in my office. Everybody is trauma certified, so we're ready to deal with those trauma, but we need that extra support too.
Right, and that's where the big part of the policing component will come in, working with them. And again, to pin your ears back, typical day in Milford, we had 9 confirmed sexual assaults. 9. And you don't hear about it, Al.
In my little town?
You don't
Yep.
hear about it, Al, because you know what? They're not part of the press log either. 9 real sexual assaults. 9 real sexual assaults that if I told you the details of them, you'd spend the rest of this day in the bathroom because you'd be so sick. Okay? This unit will also address the sexual assaults. 9.
God bless you, because I know when I hear about assaulting kids, any passion I have goes out the door. And I know it's wrong. I'm supposed to be a good Christian and forgive, but when I see people hurting kids, I don't know how I deal with it. So I'm very happy that people like you have the temperament to go in there and deal with it.
But even from the legal aspect, right? What do we have? We have a victim.
Right.
So we're trying to do 2 things. And the big problem is that victim, though they might get good, for lack of a better word, justice, okay, they're left with the scar.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we come in
Justice doesn't
as a group.
fix a
No, it doesn't even
12-year-old.
come close, doesn't address it. That's where this comes
Right.
in.
And I think we've seen, with a lot of the sexual assaults that we've dealt with is that it is that need, right after it happens to really be that support, to just be there and be there for whatever the family looks like too, because that's hard on, if it is a child, a mother and a father, depending on what the situation is, and making sure that we're there for them too. And I think, when we talk about like all these problems that we have and, what do we do, what other services are out there? And, I can't go without talking about the fact that, Representative Murray and Senator Fatman have been so loyal to everything that we have tried to do. It's kind of like
Absolutely.
when Amy calls and says, I've got a problem and I got a solution.
right.
Can you listen?
Yeah, but you're back to the same old common thread. Brian Murray is a Milford boy,
Right.
or Milford man, yeah.
I think you should keep calling these people boys. That's good.
Yeah.
No, but you think about it. These are, the John Fernandez, the Brian. These are people who grew up in Milford, who have family ties to
Right.
Milford. And you see the people having the biggest impact is people from Milford.
Right. I own John's old building. I mean, that like these are some of my mentors, but I mean, he listened to the problem of saying, okay, we have all these people that need services in there. They don't need a higher level of care. We need something here in Milford that is intensive and that is going to give the people who have the mass health insurance, the people who, have the connector, we need to give them that mental health and substance abuse intensive outpatient program. And we petitioned it to the state and they funded our startup. So that was them believing and seeing the need and seeing the progress of us saying, this is what we need to, we see a problem, we need a solution, and that's, now comes to
But
this.
again, you talk about mass health. If I'm dealing with substance abuse, am I really sitting there saying, am I going to worry about my next opioid fix? Or am I going to worry about filling in Form 3208-5? Something as basic as just getting them the insurance that
Right.
they're eligible for.
Right.
It's not to jump in here. I had that happen. I'm on the phone trying to get somebody placement, and I'm not going to mention the group. And they're like, "Oh, okay, great, yeah, okay, thanks, yeah, okay," and this and that. I'm like, "Okay, and so can I drive him out there? Can I drive him out to your facility?" They're like, "Absolutely." You're gonna send. I'm like, I'll send a couple officers out. He's being cooperative. He wants to get in. They're like, "That's great. Come on out. That's great." What's his insurance? I go, "What?" They're like, "What's his insurance?" I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even know if he has insurance. I don't. What are you talking about? Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I'm sorry. We can't help you. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Yeah, you know what? I tell you what, call back in the morning and see if you can deal with somebody. Here we go.
We're back on that merry-go-round.
We're
Right.
back on the merry-go-round.
And we need places that accept that mass health insurance, because, what we've seen a lot in the pandemic and through everything is that a lot of people, will create programs and stuff and just take third-party insurance and not the people who really
Well,
need
we've got
it
the
here.
same problem that's facing Milford with our countryside, where Medicare doesn't even pay enough. These are people who work their whole lives,
Right.
don't have problems, just got old.
Mm-hmm.
And Medicare is paying, or Mass Health is paying $75 less a day than it costs to give them basic treatment.
Right.
So you can see it. It's not just people with abuse issues.
Right.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
These are our mothers, our fathers.
Right.
So now, 6 people watching, hopefully none of them ever need your services. But for the people who do, community impact, how do I get you?
You can just stop in. 12
Where?
Congress Street. Chris's Corner is at 12 Main Street. I got to think for these 12s. I don't know what's going on here. But anytime, they can just call
Now, 12 Congress Street.
right next to Bright Insurance.
I was going to say,
So beautiful. So beautiful.
but it's there. You just walk in
Yep.
and say, I need help.
Yep.
Call on the phone, I need help. Call the police station.
Call the police
And
station.
if they call the police station, they'll get them in contact with
That's what I was
with
going to
us.
say. With the
Yeah.
relationship we have with our law enforcement
Mm-hmm.
people, call the police station and say,
Absolutely.
Robbie said I can call.
That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
Or walk in.
You'd be surprised if people call and say that.
Right. Or say, can you get me in touch with Community Impact or Chris's
But
Corner?
that's a tribute to you, Chief Falvey, Deputy Chief Sank, and all the officers, that the stigma of police uniform bad, we don't see it here.
Yeah, that's and you are very lucky. The conversation I always tell people is, the TV shows have the conversation around the water cooler, a bunch of officers saying, "Ha, look at this guy and this guy did that." When the reality is, our conversation around the water cooler is, "I can't believe so and so had a bad night last
Yeah.
night," and then the
Right.
other officers chime in like, "No, did he or she again? Yup, they were using again last night. Oh, that's horrible."
But it,
a
Robbie,
lot of
it's-
compassion.
when we had to come up with $600,000
Right.
to fund SWAT
Mhm.
in Milford,
Special operations team. Yep.
I remember what flipped me to absolutely supporting it was when they said, we can get a SWAT team here in, 30 minutes? 40 minutes?
Probably more like 40.
Okay, and the average incident is over in 18.
Yep.
That's when we looked and said, oh my God. So you're calling officers specialized
Right.
to come and do the mop-up?
Yep.
To be witnesses and document everything.
Yeah, no, I'd rather have them there already.
Of course. Sure.
Well, we could go on forever, and I hope we get together again soon.
We will.
Thank you, Al. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you so much.
Not me, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you for everything you do for Milfordians. And most importantly, just to get the word out that there is help. If you know people who you think need help, call. Don't be ashamed. Don't think you're ratting people out. Just let Amy, Robbie, let them know that there may be a neighbor or a friend who needs help. Because we may not be Mayberry, but we're not the worst city either.
Not even close.
No.
No, not even close.
So as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Good night, all.
Far too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.